Okay, let's begin with some basic math concepts. And let's look at this number line. Okay, we have a number line. We have 0 being the middle point. And from this middle point, you can go positive numbers like positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to infinity. Keeps going forever. Just as you can have negative numbers going negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, all the way to infinity. So just to take a visual look at how numbers work, numbers can go positive and negative as far as they can go in each direction. Now, let's take a look at this same number line. And here's 0, here's positive 1, here's negative 1. What we need to know is in between 0 and 1 is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then there's 1. So and then between 1 and 2 is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.9, 2. Then after 2 is 2.1, 2.2. Those numbers go in between the whole number 1 and the whole number 2. And it does the same thing in the negative direction. So it's negative 0.1, negative 0.2, all the way up to negative 0.9, then there's 1. Then there's negative 1, negative 1.1, negative 1.2. And there are numbers in between these numbers all the way up to infinity. Second thing we should know is the concept of what is a square root. The square root sign looks like this. The square root of a number is that number times itself. So in other words, the square root of the number 4 is the number 2. Why? Because 2 times 2 equals 4. The square root of 81 is 9. Why? Because 9 times 9 equals 81. The square root of 64 is 8. Why? Because 8 times 8 equals 64. All right, let's look at the area of a shape. When we talk about the area of a shape, we talk about what's inside of a shape, the measurements. In this case, we have a square. And the way we measure what's inside the square, for instance, this was a room, and you wanted to put carpet down, you would multiply this wall times this wall. Or in other words, the length times the width. And you would get the area. This is what the concept of area means. The length times the width, but what's inside of it. Kind of like when you're putting down a floor. Then we have the perimeter, which you add up all the sides. And that will tell you what the perimeter is. The perimeter is adding up all the sides, but it's like putting a fence around something. When you put a fence around your backyard pool or your backyard, you want to measure the perimeter. All 4 sides. That's different from the area, which is multiplying the length times the width to figure out what's inside. Perimeter is adding all the sides around. Area is what's inside. Also, another math concept we need to know, it's very important here, is a little bit geometry. We must know that all sides must add up to 180 degrees. In other words, when you have a triangle, when you add up all the angles, it must equal 180 degrees. In this case, we have 60, 60, 60. It must add up to 180 degrees. Why is that important? Okay, suppose you get a problem if angle, and here's a symbol for angle, A equals 100, like in this case right here. Then angle B is your angle sign, And angle C must equal what? 40 degrees. Why? Because if the whole thing must equal 180 degrees, and this is already 100, then this has to be 40 degrees, which will make it 140. And this has to be 40 degrees, which will make it 180 to complete the triangle. And you will be seeing math problems that involve this concept. So you do have to know that all triangles must equal up to 180 degrees. We do need to know that this is a 45-degree angle, which is half of a right angle. We know that this is a right angle, which is 90 degrees, when nobody's little box. Wherever you see this little box, you know it's 90 degrees. This is 90 degrees plus 90 degrees, which is 180 degrees. It's also known as a shape. It's also a symbol for perpendicular. And all perpendicular means is there are two 90-degree angles. Perpendicular. Here is a complete 180, 180, 180, which is 360 degrees, which is a complete circle. So when we talk about 360 degrees, we're talking about a complete circle. A complete circle going all the way around is also known as 360 degrees. These concepts we need to know. We also need to know the concepts of equals. In other words, 2/3 equals 0.66. Why? Because if you divide the 3 into the 2, it goes 0.6 and 0.6 all the way to infinity. It's 0.6666. These equal the same thing. In the same way as 75% equals decimal point 75. How do we know? We drop the decimal point. We drop the percentage sign, move 2 spaces to your left, add the percent sign, and you get the same value. Greater than. Remember, the open end always go to the higher number, and the point always go to the smaller number. So 7 is greater than 5. Or, in this case, -1 is greater than negative 0.75. Negative 0.1 is greater than negative 0.75. You say, well, 75 is higher than what? Well, this is a negative, meaning you'd rather owe $0.1 than owe 0.75. At least I know I would. So this makes it greater. This makes it greater, a higher value than this. This is a lesser value. Now, we have the concept of less than. In this case, the less than always go to the smaller number. 2 is less than 9. And -5 is less than -3. Once again, you'd rather have $3, owe somebody $3 than owe somebody $5. If you owe someone $5, that's lesser than owing someone $3. So we do need to remember these concepts before we begin.